There are 3 different levels, or layers, contained within the town of Silent Hill. The first layer being known as the real world. The one in which you and I live in, and is most likely the only layer we would see if we were to visit Silent Hill. Located in the state of Maine, the town has had a vast and storied history. It initially began life as a mining colony, but slowly evolved into a quaint tourist haven, as people came far and wide to enjoy its large yet humble Toluca Lake. Though Silent Hill always had strange rumors of death and destruction surrounding it, being known as a sacred place both holy and demonic. While we never see much of the real world throughout the series, it seems Silent Hill operates as a nice American getaway, regardless of spooky background. Though, there are a select few people who are called or invited to Silent Hill. People who have darkness in their hearts, past trauma unresolved. In the first Silent Hill, a man named Harry Mason visits the town after his young daughter strangely suggests that they do. In Silent Hill 2, James Sunderland visits the town after his seemingly dead wife sends him a letter, saying she's waiting for him in their special place. Those who are invited to Silent Hill are the only ones who are able to access its second, much more supernatural layer, the Fog World. In the Fog World, the town is completely abandoned, with not a single soul to be found anywhere. It's as if everyone had suddenly just stood up and left, leaving behind everything they had, only taking the clothes on their backs. So instead, a new resident has seemingly settled in, the fog. Silent Hill is often best described as a dream, in the sense that when you're in one, everything is sort of clouded, like your vision has been blurred or tunneled, your mind only allowing you to see what it can comprehend. Silent Hill emulates this with its excessive and seemingly never-ending amount of fog that hinders the player's sight, obscuring you from peering too far out into the distance. Is this so-called fog world real, or is it in fact just a dream? That answer becomes more unclear as we meet the other people who are called to Silent Hill.
You could be her twin. Your face, your voice, just your hair and clothes are different.
My name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I?
In Silent Hill, no one really talks like an actual human being.
So Harry didn't tell you anything. I guess he hid the truth to keep you on his side.
Each and every line is extremely stoic and subtle, or loud and angry, with zero in between.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Aside from the recent remake, every single delivery sounds strange, out of place, and in a way, can be considered amateurish. Some scenes that are meant to be taken seriously now almost feel comedic. I, like many others, assumed that this was unintentional, as after all, Silent Hill is a Japanese series made by Japanese developers who, despite that, the team decided to make English the only language the games were available in. This was likely due to wanting to maintain not only the setting of small-town rural America, but to stay true to Silent Hill's main inspiration, that being the works of David Lynch, such as Twin Peaks, Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, and Eraserhead.
Strangest damn things, they're man-made. Little damn things, smaller than my fist. They're new. I'm Bill.
Just like David Lynch's work, the bizarre performances are a part of the uncanny, dreamlike nature of Silent Hill, making you question whether or not the inhabitants of the Fog World are even real, or are they just tricks the town plays on you? That answer is never really simple. Whatever the case may be, the inhabitants all seem to have their own demons to deal with, their own reason for being called to Silent Hill. Unfortunately, other people aren't the only thing living in this town. In the Fog World, monsters can be found roaming the streets, inside buildings, or wherever they may lie in wait. These monsters are different from your usual horror enemies. Instead of zombies, vampires, or dinosaurs, these creatures are off-putting and almost uncomfortable to look at. There are less monsters and more human figures that have been manipulated and contorted, with their flesh being used like dough to shape whatever desire the town may have for the player, as every character sees the monsters differently depending on their reason for being called to Silent Hill. For example, the bubblehead nurses from Silent Hill 2 can be interpreted as a manifestation of James Sunderland's hatred towards hospital staff, who he considered incompetent for not being able to cure his wife's terminal illness. Yet, with their revealing outfits and head that is wrapped in a condom-like cloth, they can also be seen as a representation of James's frustration of not being able to be intimate with his wife while she was terminally ill. The monsters in Silent Hill are both literal and figurative representations of its inhabitants' demons, though which demons are up for you to decide, as not only the creatures of Silent Hill begin to change and contort, but the layout of the town itself does as well. Once you enter the fog world of Silent Hill, there is no getting out, as you'll find that every exit road has somehow crumbled away, replaced by a cliff with no bottom in sight. Sometimes they are blocked off by massive walls draped in strange white sheets. Though that is no matter, as every single person in Silent Hill has come here for a reason. Something precious the town has promised them that they refuse to leave without. Though Silent Hill has made finding such a thing not a simple task. Paths are often blocked by whatever mundane reason, doors are often unopenable, and the way forward is only accessible by solving strange puzzles. Though there are also a lot of lucky coincidences in Silent Hill, such as doors that you need being conveniently unlocked when no others are, weapon ammo just lying around for you to pick up, or lock combinations being written on walls for you to find. It feels like this town is almost laying its own path for you, a path that is masked by puzzles, as if it doesn't want to reveal its true nature to you just yet, keeping you on your toes as to whether or not this fog world is your new reality, because when you're in a dream, you just kind of accept everything, since your mind doesn't seem to know any better. It's drugged under the events of your past, as it cycles through them and manifests when you're sleeping. No matter how many bizarre things happen, you just sleep there and take it. That's why no matter how eerily terrifying the fog world is, it has a calming numbness that part of you wants to stay enveloped in forever. For whatever threats may lie in Silent Hill can sometimes seem pale in comparison to the horrors of the real world. But if you sink too deep, Silent Hill will drag you into its third layer. If the fog world is a dream, then the other world is a nightmare. Silent Hill has been left to rot and decay. The eerily calm atmosphere of the fog world has been peeled away entirely, revealing the other world's hellish interior. Down here, the landscape of the town begins to crumble and change dramatically. The walls have turned a brown rust coated with dried old blood. The floors have been replaced by dark chain link fences. Even the roads outside now make the town feel like one big cage. Though it's not like there's anything waiting for you below said cage, other than a fall into the seemingly never-ending black void. Flesh can be found, draped in almost every corner, whether that be on inhuman bodies or placed where it shouldn't be. Nothing has been left untouched or unmuddied, as Silent Hill's true nature has been laid bare. What makes the other world so terrifying is it chooses to depict everyday locations such as schools, apartments, hotels, office buildings, malls, and hospitals. All places that we designate as normal and safe suddenly morph into abhorrent amalgamations. They no longer feel like the real threat of Silent Hill, as they now look tame compared to puzzles found on this level. The pre-rendered images make even the simplest doorknobs or box look oddly terrifying, like there's something sinister lying in wait, something the game doesn't want you to see. Since in the other world, puzzles suddenly become sadistic, pushing the player far past their comfort zone, into acts that no human being should partake in. In fact, the other world in its entirety feels sadistic, like Silent Hill has become an entity that's sole purpose is to torture its inhabitants, with not only strange noises that keep you on edge, but macabre visual representations of a person's demons or trauma. As just like the monsters, each character's otherworld is entirely unique to them. Take Heather Mason's otherworld from Silent Hill 3, being almost entirely a visual metaphor for problems a teenage girl entering the adult world such as herself would face, with depictions of stalkers, unwanted advances, pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood, and menstruation are common throughout the game. Though one of my favorite locations in the game is one that actually takes place in the fog world, called Monica's Dance Studio, a ballet class in which overly bloated enemies called insane cancers can be found. This coincides with dance being a sport that forces its participants to have overly thin and oftentimes unrealistic bodies, which can evolve into an unhealthy obsession called body dysmorphia, where one will take unhealthy precautions to maintain their thin stature. Though, no matter what, they will always see themselves as bloated and unwanted, similar to the insane cancers we see in the studio. This, mixed with societal pressure, can unfortunately push young girls into the extreme, as in the locker room we can find a rope in one of the drawers that is described as well used. Well, sure, I might be reading too much into this, as rope is also sometimes used in dance. That's kind of the beauty of Silent Hill, as I'm hoping you're beginning to realize what type of horror this series is. You'll notice I haven't said too much of Silent Hill's combat in this video, and that's because, with the exception of 2 Remake, combat is far from the focus of these games. Most people, including myself, initially approach them as you would a much more traditional survival horror game like Resident Evil, that being trying to conserve as much ammo and health items as possible, because those resources are extremely scarce, with a very select amount scattered throughout the game. So when you are forced to come face to face with an enemy, every bullet and health item is precious. The same cannot be said for Silent Hill, as not only are the resources numerous, there is not much of a reason to use them, as most enemies you can just run past or take down with a few good melee hits. In short, enemies don't really pose much of a threat, and in most cases, even bosses. A lot of people consider Silent Hill to be survival horror, only because it sits close enough in that Venn diagram to its contemporaries, but I feel that the label, psychological horror, fits it the best. Silent Hill's more relaxed difficulty and enemy encounters are intentional because despite the contradicting appearance, this game is designed to keep you alive. Designed to move you from set piece to set piece, since the story is where the real horror comes from. As mentioned earlier, the town of Silent Hill seems to morph and change to represent its visitors' struggles. But what I didn't talk about is that these visual metaphors are the primary way the story is told through us throughout these games, very little by cutscenes and dialogue. For an example, I'm going to be using Angela Roscoe from Silent Hill 2, so major spoilers for her story if you haven't played that game. She's actually the first character that James encounters in the fog world, as Angela was called to Silent Hill with the promise of finding her estranged mother.
I thought my father and brother were here, but I can't find them either.
We later meet her in the Otherworld apartments, where she can be found staring at herself in the mirror, holding a bloody knife. James assumes that she's going to commit suicide, so he tries to talk her out of it.
Maybe it's all we deserve. We're all the same.
I'm not like you.
Angela sees right through James in a way, even when he refuses to see himself. Though when James mentions that he's looking for his dead wife, Angela immediately becomes suspicious and erratic.
No! I'm sorry! I've been bad! Please don't!
The next time we encounter Angela is in Rosewater Park.
Anyway, I'm happy to see you.
Happy to see me?
Alive, I mean.
Oh. Yeah.
Angela reacts with confusion that someone would be happy to see her, that someone would care about her as a human being, but she once again distrusts James.
You shouldn't be here.
Angela, it's okay.
No, don't touch me!
Later in the game, James finds a bloody newspaper that talks about the death of a man named Thomas Orozco, who had a history of drunken violence, but his life was ended after being stabbed multiple times. You find this newspaper before once again seeing Angela, who hasn't found her mother, but unfortunately, her father.
Tell him I'll be good, please.
Angela?
Daddy!
This is a boss labeled in-game as Abstract Daddy. Its design appears to be one humanoid figure pinning another down to what looks like a bed frame draped in fleshy sheets. The figure on top has all control, with its legs and arms allowing it to move around, while the figure on the bottom can only just scream in pain. James can only run from the Abstract Daddy as we enter an overlapped version of Angela's otherworld, which starts out as an endless maze of hallways, with the only way out being through small spaces like closets, spaces where a young child would hide from a pursuer. Though the deeper James goes, the hallways change from wallpaper to flesh-like blankets with circular pistons constantly going in and out of holes. If it wasn't already apparent, both the Abstract Daddy and Angela's otherworld seem to be communicating that their father and possibly her older brother would sexually abuse Angela as a child. The newspaper implies that she was the one who killed him with the bloodied kitchen knife, but had fled in fear. That seems to be when Silent Hill called upon Angela, summoning her to the town with the promise of finding her mother. After James kills the Abstract Daddy, he tries to console her.
I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
Angela, please.
Or you could just force me. Like he always did.
Even after killing her father, Angela's trauma is unresolved, as she still sees all men as her father, people who want to force her and use her. In turn, that's all Angela thinks she's worth as, and that's all she will ever be. The final time we meet Angela is near the very end of the game in the Lakeview Hotel, once again in her otherworld.
Mama? Mama! I was looking for you. You're the only one left. Maybe then I can finally rest. Mama. You're not my mama.
Angela clings to the memory of her mother, as she seems to be the only member of her family who wasn't abusive, though she might have been in a different way. It seems that Angela's mother knew about her father and brother's abuse, though refused to do anything about it, told Angela she deserved it, and one day left her all alone. Yet Angela still holds on to her mother so strongly that she fails to realize what type of person she was. Hence why Angela almost reverts back to a childish way of speaking when referring to her as Mama. It's not exactly clear what she sees in the town, if Silent Hill is actually showing Angela other people instead of James, or even if he can see her other world, which this time is in flames and surrounded by bodies nailed to walls.
Give me back the knife.
No, I won't.
Have it your way. It doesn't change anything.
James leaves her to climb the stairway, and we don't ever see Angela again. At this point, Silent Hill seems like a cruel and unforgiving place that is only meant to torture those it invites, and that is never more apparent than when we enter what I like to call the secret fourth and final layer of the town, the discombobulate world. The discombobulate world is not really a world or a layer at all. No matter how supernatural the previous layers are, they always had some aspect of locational awareness. Such as if you were in the fog world version of the Midwich Elementary and suddenly you entered the other world, you would be in the other world Midwich Elementary, plain and simple. Though the discombobulate world is only accessible through strange, otherworldly entrances, such as a long, never-ending staircase that leads to a hole deep in the ground. Though once you're in, it feels like you're never going to get out, as wherever this place is, it no longer feels like you're in the town. As a matter of fact, it no longer feels like you're anywhere. The guardrails of Silent Hill have been completely taken off, as everything you know begins to break down and melt together, ultimately representing the character's mental state at this point in the game. Rooms that shouldn't exist, a labyrinth of endless wallpaper, strange canals full of hazy barriers. The discombobulate world only appears near the end of each game, when these characters are at their lowest, when they have lost everything, yet they keep on persevering despite the infinite horrors behind every corner. One could say this is Silent Hill's true form, when creation has been set back to basics and is no longer masquerading as a quaint tourist town. Now it's just hell incarnate. Though this line of thinking isn't entirely true, as Silent Hill isn't a place of punishment, it's a place of healing. While Silent Hill's inception and background is rather sinister, having been taken advantage of by the likes of cultists and other evil dwellers, the town itself seems to ignore that fact, calling those who have unresolved trauma with the promise of what they think they need, what they think would solve all of their problems. For James, it was his dead wife, and for Angela, it was her mother. Once Silent Hill sinks its teeth into you, it refuses to let go, constantly reminding the inhabitants with its manifestations of their dark pasts, but not as torment, but as salvation. Us humans tend to conveniently forget about the horrors of our past. We like to shove them into the corner and pretend like they don't exist, though that solves nothing, only making things worse as those memories weigh on you like a brick, dragging you down farther than you ever thought possible. That's why Silent Hill shows its visitors the atrocities they've committed, the horrors they've wrought, front and center, not to ridicule them, but to help them grow past it, to make people better versions of themselves. Whatever entity controls the strings behind the true nature of Silent Hill, it seems to want to make you leave as a better person. Of course, this is just my interpretation of Silent Hill. It may be wrong, as not everyone makes it out of the town alive, but if I've learned anything playing these games, Silent Hill and life in general is what you make of it.